Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final presentation for today's class. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about something that's very crucial and very important. It will be simply known as black or blue, an observation on the current state of African American discourse via Black Lives Matter and the counter-argument behind it. Now, just as a side warning, because of the nature of this discussion and the controversial nature of it, I would like to open up with this disclaimer. This presentation is not an endorsement for or either causes. This is merely an academic observation on the state of the times that we are currently living in. So without further ado, let's begin the presentation. We are living in tense times. We are living in a shift in ideas, especially as of this recording, with the upcoming election. Be it whoever you know who they are, so we won't get into deep details with it. However, this presentation is an address on what's going on in this society, and we will get into further details on how this whole ordeal began. Now, much like in the 1960s with the rise of the Black Panther movement and the rise of civil rights, we had our own millennial civil rights movement through Black Lives Matter. Now, just to give you a backstory, here's how it began. In February of 2013, George Zimmerman was acquitted of the death of Trayvon Martin. And as a result of this acquittal, simply because Mr. Martin was unarmed, a group of black students, led by Alicia Garza, I believe, formed a movement entitled Black Lives Matter. Now, this movement is clearly a response to how police brutality has been going on the rise, and thus how the African American culture had played a huge part in creating this ordeal through social media, through Twitter, through Facebook, etc., etc. And they use one thing and one thing only to help this movement come to life. And this movement is gone through so many platforms and so many changes in this particular cause. In this case, though, in this matter, though, it will be known that the Black Lives Matter movement has become a huge force in political candidacies. Now, as a result of this new campaign, a counter movement was created by conservatives to downplay Black Lives Matter, saying that all lives matter. Now, of course, this counter movement known as All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, have gotten support from police groups downplaying the mentality of BLM. Now, you can click on the source right here. Here's a link below to give you the idea of what's wrong with All Lives Matter anyway from the website theblaze.com. That way you can get a fair and balanced look at how it all began. Now, for this, we use two theories. Now, there was one theory, of course, that was used in this case, though, and that theory, of course, was rhetoric, agitation, control, and social change, which, of course, was Bowers and Ox, the rhetoric of agitation and control. Now, Bowers and Ox wrote simply this, that this, of course, just to make sure, that nonverbal communication is symbolic and those appropriate for rhetoric analysis. Now, to get into more details, let's look at agitation over here. Now, according to Ox, agitation is a long term for advocacy and social change. Now, we saw that in the 1960s with the rise of the civil rights movement through Dr. Martin Luther King, as well as Malcolm X and others. Now, this agitation is a long-term advocacy of social change. And there are two types of changes that Ox got into details in his article. Now, that part has two parts according to him. It's legislation, the power of deciding policy, as you can tell through the 1964 Voting Rights Act, and enforcement, which is the power of administering negative and positive sanctions to those who violate the policies. This is according to Dr. Ox, word for word. So, again, because of this new, but for Black Lives Matter in this case, the biggest way of agitation can be summed up in a different way. Now, prime examples of Black Lives Matter approach to agitation would be this. Now, if you saw the news recently, you saw how over the holiday season that they closed down airports, they closed down shopping malls, they went down the highways, the streets, and basically to promote the cause. And they often sometimes go at rallies of different candidates to basically shout out those situations just to remember their names. It doesn't matter whether who's running for the current presidential candidate, be it Clinton, be it Sanders, Trump, etc., etc. Now, which brings me to number two, theory number two over here. Now, there's good, and then you have Dr. Goodnight's theory of public spheres. Now, there are three spheres that that Dr. Goodnight mentioned in his articles. There's the personal sphere, there's the technical sphere, and then there's the public sphere. Now, the key premise behind the controversy was that the arguments pretty much falls on the public spheres as the idea of employment, lack of funds, and otherwise help bring the tension to a fever degree. Now, as you remember back in the early 90s, that there was a similar tactic that happened with regards to the death of Rodney King in 1991, and how the tension between the LAPD as well as the people of South Central Los Angeles and otherwise, people of color that is, caused, and when the verdict was read, the riots were there. And if you want to go into more recent territory, what happened in Ferguson with the Michael Brown case, as well as the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore, the results when the verdict was read and they were not going to get indicted, of course, it became a clear conception of rioting in this case. In the counter argument, police lives as well as all lives matter has become the key argument. Some might say that this argument is very invalid because of the fact that it doesn't address police brutality. But when you look at this opinion piece by CNN, it clearly says that not only police lives matter, but also journalists' lives matter because of what has happened all over the country. So, therefore, you can see where we can go from here. So, to conclude this whole ordeal, let me just say something very clear. I am not an advocate for neither BLM, nor ALM, nor BLLM. This observation of the rhetoric of the recent controversies had become apparent given the tense nature of the state that we are living in as people of color. After doing some research, the only solution for this mess on both sides is to learn from each other and love each other. I would like to thank Dr. Fabi for allowing us to be a part of this class, and I would like to thank the other students for watching, and I hope you have an awesome spring break. So, thank you guys so much, and make it a good one.